Now, when it comes to US China trade, most people are focused on tariffs, but the real battle, the one doing the most damage, is over export controls. And this is exactly what took center stage in London as US and Chinese trade representatives met to finalize this new deal. Currently, the US is restricting the export of high-end microchips to China in an effort to stall its technological rise. And in response, China is blocking rare earth elements, critical materials that power everything from electric vehicles to smartphones to US military systems. But here is the key difference. The US is playing defense, while China is playing for unity and leverage. China is using the trade war to fuel a new kind of nationalism, one rooted in economic independence and technological supremacy. This unity gives Beijing massive leverage, because while public support for the trade war in the US is fragile and divided, in China, economic pressure is seen as validation that their model is succeeding. Currently, China controls over 70% of rare earth mining, and far more importantly, over 90% of the world's processing capacity. That's not dominance. That's a monopoly. But even with the subsidies and political willpower, the truth is that any rare earth successfully mined by the United States would still have to be shipped back to China to be refined into usable material. China is literally the only country on the planet that can refine these materials to 99.99% purity, even if everything goes perfectly for the US. Experts say it would take around 10 years for the US to start up a processing chain capable of competing with China. Trump campaigned on the promise of bringing back manufacturing to America, but the US auto industry, which ironically is the last major domestic US manufacturing sector, are now exploring options to outsource even more of their production to China. This, of course, was a major discussion point at the London meeting, with more than 1,000 US companies submitting applications to Chinese officials for rare earth exports. In the end, China approved 98 licenses for rare earth exports to the US, but also stated that they would only be valid for the next 6 months, ensuring that China retains leverage over the US in case of future trade escalations. This was an important win for the US auto industry, who was literally on the verge of shutting down production before this deal was finalized. The biggest conclusion from this meeting in London is that despite all the rhetoric you hear in our media, the US and China must work together. This is why even Donald Trump, the man who at one point tariffed China with 245% tariffs, called President Xi and asked for this high-level trade meeting in London. Simply put, the US economy cannot survive without China, and China will remain the dominant global manufacturer and key producer of the rare earth elements that power so many sectors of the US economy.